Welcome to Purple Easel Spotlight, where we put the spotlight on artists and creatives. My name's Latoya.
And I'm Megan.
And we're both art instructors here at Purple Easel, California's largest paint sip studio. So today we're going to be talking about Keith Haring. And Keith Haring was an American artist whose pop art emerged from the New York graffiti subculture in the 1980s.
Oh, yeah.
He's well known for his illustrative depictions of figures, symbols that you still see today. If you were born in the year 3000, you might not be too familiar. We're on the internet, so it's timeless. But if you're born in the 19th century, it's in 1980s, you have
seen it.
Yes, you've seen it. So I actually just want to open up with a quote that he said, and I feel like that this quote encompasses his whole being, his art, and who he is. And it is, I don't think art is propaganda. It should be something that liberates the soul, provokes the imagination, and encourages people to go further. It celebrates humanity instead of manipulating it. So there's a reason why I pulled this particular picture up is because I was born in 83 and it's a little baby, and that's me. I was born, that's me, I'm a little baby. But he was creating graffiti in the New York subways, and he used, this is just white chalk on it. And he kind of thought the subways was more like a laboratory, a place where he could experiment and create his artworks. So he would see these black advertisement papers and he would just draw on them for like free advertisement for himself, like his own artwork, which I think is kind of clever. I would never think of that. I would think to like, oh, I have to pay space, but this is free space.
I mean, people graffiti on anything and everything, so...
Anything's free space if you think about it. So one thing that I didn't know about Keith, and I was enlightened by our coworker, he works here, Jake, and he was talking about Keith Haring, and that he was big. He didn't breakdance himself, but he surrounded himself by breakdancers, which is, yeah, very...
So 80s.
Yeah, so 80s. So he was closely associated with hip-hop culture, breakdancers, graffiti artists, and his own style captures the movement and rhythm of breakdancing in many of his pieces. This first one in particular is just called Exercise. So like, have I not said the name or the title Exercise, you would probably just assume these are just dancers.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of line movement, and a lot of his pieces are... What I like about it is that they're still, but they're movement. Like you can tell from like the human body, the way they're...
manipulation of the limbs, and then just the indicator lines. I mean, I like this green one, and how the lines are slightly curved, like pushing towards the ground, and it like gives you that...
Yeah. You know? So here's some more movement pieces. One thing that is also really cool about his art is that they're ageless, they're typically sexless, they're just a human body, the bare bones human form. And that's one thing I really like, because it could be anyone. It could be you, it could be your sister, it could be your mom.
I don't think my mom would have been able to do that.
But yes.
I can't do that for that matter, so...
We're old, so we can't do any of these things. So by this time in the 1985, he was so huge, he was so popular, he was everywhere. The UN commissioned him to make like a UN stamp. He worked on like art sets for MTV. He was like friends with David Bowie. He painted on Grace Jones for a music video. He's friends with Andy Warhol and Basquiat and all that stuff. So he was pretty like...
He's in the circle, man.
He's very much in the circle.
That's interesting. I wonder, because we think of them as being so iconic, obviously they saw something in his work to keep him around. So I don't think they would have, put up with his presence if they didn't believe in what he was doing.
Yeah, and to be honest, I feel like his work is I can see it being universally liked.
Yeah.
Universally liked.
Because, like you said, it's in everybody. It's one step beyond a stick figure.
Yeah.
We all relate to making that kind of artwork at some point. And you have to draw for school and maybe you never drew again. But like everybody kind of has that relatability with what he's got going on.
So in April 1986, he started a pop-up kind of shop where he was selling his shirts, posters, and other items. And it was criticized a little bit because it's like, hey, I bet you're from the streets. You used to do graffiti stuff, and here you are. Yeah, exactly. You're a sellout. But one thing that he had to rebuttal that, and I think is actually pretty interesting, he said, my shop is an extension of what I was doing in the subways, breaking down the barriers between high and low art.
If he's making it accessible to everybody, then it's not just something only rich people can have access to. I like that. And that does mirror the whole subway thing because everybody rides the subway.
Yeah. Yeah, millions of people.
Yeah.
And I remember us talking about this a little bit with the Roy Lichtenstein about the like breaking out of that high art again, like only rich people can have. And this is for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So also around this time where he had his pop-up shop or pop shop, he started to focus more on social political themes such as like anti-apartheid, AIDS awareness, and the crack cocaine epidemic. So we'll see a few of his pieces. This one I really, really like because it is, we are the world, we are the children.
Touchy-feely.
Yeah, which is just very simple. Again, universally liked. If you're on the planet Earth, we can all agree that we should just be
Better.
yeah, coexist. You know what I mean? All right, let's check out the next one. This one is Stop AIDS. And this is scissors, obviously, but I like that the scissors are two people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty clever.
And then we got Crackdown, which I think is clever also. Crackdown.
I'm like, please don't step on the needle, though.
Yeah, I do think that when I first saw it, I was like, oh, fun. Yeah. Ooh. So in 1988, he was diagnosed with AIDS, and he did pass of it in 1990, but he left us with a few treasures, one of which is the nonprofit organization, which is the Keith Haring Foundation, which is to basically spread awareness of AIDS through the art programming and community outreach. Two, he was featured in more than 100 solo group exhibitions and produced more than 50 public artworks and dozens of charities, hospitals, daycare centers, and orphanage. And I remember seeing, like, in my head in the 90s, I associated his work with like hospital ads or like be well, be safe kind of.
Like motivational posters almost kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was very openly gay, and he uses artwork as a platform to advocate for LGBTQ plus rights and to raise awareness of the issues that's affecting the community.
Yeah, in the 80s, there was plenty. Not that there's not now.
Yeah.
I remember that was like, to me, that's the real kickoff of like social awareness of a lot of issues that before were probably kind of swept under the rug.
Yeah. So one thing I really do enjoy about his work was, it is, I don't know, we cover a lot of artists, but this one in particular is, it kind of reminds me of like Ranger Dog and the fact to where he's like doing stuff for the public and like spreading awareness about something, using his art as a way to be like, here, pay attention to this. And this is a problem affecting not just maybe your neighborhood, but like humanity. Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
So Megan, have you heard of the George Land Creativity Test?
No.
It is very, very interesting. It's going to blow everyone's minds, I think.
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay, so basically, So in 1968, George conducted a research study to test the creativity of 1,600 children.
Okay.
Right? And these children range from 3 to 5-year-olds. And this is the same test NASA uses to select their innovative engineers and scientists. And dig this. All the 5-year-olds scored a 98. Highly creative. But as years go on, they tested every 5 years to see where the kids at in their creativity, right? 10 years old, 30%.
Ooh. Ouch, that's a steep drop.
Yes. 15 years old, 12%. Okay. And then this test was given randomly to 280,000 just people in general, and only like 2% of out of that many people scored great on the creativity test.
Wow.
So what he concluded is that non-creative behavior is learned. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I feel like Keith's art is very bare bones basic. I would say even like cartoonish, that kids can enjoy, even though there's a lot of like kind of adult tones to it.
Yeah.
It's just very interesting that we grow up and we lose some of that creativity. And my question to you is, why do you think that is? So they suspect because of the Industrial Revolution, you know, we kind of get bred out of, we just work, and go to school, and then we're just nice little workers, but we lose the creativity. So I'd like to know your take on why do the kids lose the creativity?
Society, and in large part, I think, capitalism. Because as you grow older, it becomes less about fanciful ideals and getting by in the real world. And so you start to lose that. I think humans are inherently creative, and we discount the ways that creativity manifests. I'm not sure how the test really covers it, but I like the fact that it's used by NASA as well, because I think there's a lot of creativity in the science fields, which people don't realize. But yeah, I think it's just life is in the way. And the more you break out of that fantasy land, fairy tales, and start to become closer with reality of what the world is right now, it kind of beats it out of you, unfortunately.
And you know, we see that all the time here at Purple Easel with the kids classes versus the adult classes. It's so funny because last week I had a mix of both adults and kids in the kids class, and without fail, we're painting a pumpkin, and I look over at the kids. I've already just drawn the lines. They filled in their pumpkins already. I look to the adults and they're waiting on me, but the kids are already done. I didn't even talk about that stuff. They're so confident. They're just like, yeah, I get it. Like,
right. It was the same thing at the event I did yesterday at the Boys and Girls Club. And it was a pumpkin, and they all just pretty much hit the ground running. And once you get those few steps instructed, and they kind of get the idea of like, okay, this is how we mix the paint, whatever, they just do whatever they want, and they don't even wait for the instruction. As we're adults are bated breath, and they get frustrated more easily, and the kids just don't care.
No, they don't care. Yeah,
it doesn't have to look like anything at the end of it. It could just end up with a bunch of
scribbles, and they will love it.
Yep.
It's the best thing that they've ever done.
Toya, if non-creativity is a learned behavior, how do we unlearn it?
I have the answer for you, and it is to remove judgment. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. But that's the number one thing that adults have a problem with. Or again, back to my class, the lady was like, "Oh, my leaf is too big." The leaf was fine, but to her, it just wasn't like mine. It just the judgment. And it is learned too, because we have our bosses telling us one thing, we have our teachers telling us, we got our professors to tell it's not good enough, you get it, you know, you're graded harshly or whatever the case is. And so we have to do better, we have to be the best. And it's hard to get into something the first time ever, because a lot of our customers they've never painted before ever. I think it's encouraging that they're even here, you know what I mean? Because it's it's so hard to publicly have, and then it's funny because they don't know we're gonna walk around, but they always have them painting like this. And I'm like, I'm gonna see it. So it's hard, but it's the judgment. They feel judged. They feel like there's some looming thing that is judging them. So removing that. But again, that's a beast within itself.
It is. And people kind of lose the ability to be freeform. I'm really bad at it. I have to purposely let myself go and take out kind of the perfectionism in certain things. And you're right. It's coming from work. It's coming from, you know, society creates all these parameters, and they're necessary. We need them.
Oh, yeah.
But then it's hard to translate back into the artistic realm and let all that go, because it's so ingrained. And I like to think we try to do a pretty good job of that here. But I mean, art is accessible to everybody, whether you're here or not. There's lots of options for you, like Purple Easel Plus. You could be literally anywhere and do the stuff with us. But just find something. Find a way to be creative, even if it's in your problem solving with an Excel file. Like, you know, it doesn't matter. There are so many little instances throughout your life that you can take a moment and kind of step back and let yourself like just experience it and not judge the process.
And one more tidbit of information that I have is I would practice scribbling. So I remember you sending me something, but my fiance also does that. And he's like top tier artist or whatever, but he still scribbles because by scribbling, you don't care. You know it's going to be a scribble, blah, 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 blah. And within that scribble, you can maybe see a form and you can start working on those forms through the scribble. Everybody... I think MS Paint might be dead, I'm not sure. But on my computer, I still have MS Paint. And what I'll do is I'll just take my mouse and I'll scribble, and then I'll fill in the things, like with the the blocks, with the bucket. And I'm just like, yay. And it's for my inner child, and I save the file, and it's something that I do.
That's amazing. It's just like coloring books.
Yeah, exactly.
So it gives you some parameters, but you can go hog wild. You can start putting patterns within certain shapes. You can shade it. You can do it in pressing hard. Like, that's my kid. She was
okay.
you know, like, there's some subtleties you can learn here and try and get her to shade it a little bit by lightly pressing and then pressing harder. But I mean, it's the same exact thing. There's such a huge boom in adult coloring books, and I think that's why there's just enough structure there, but then you get to do whatever you want with it.
Exactly. So the artist that we wanted to give a shout out today, I picked specifically because I wanted this episode to be about bringing out the inner child that's within you and making these very simplistic, very beautiful, but childlike pieces. And her name is
Garanceenpapier. And her handle on Instagram is Garanceenpapier. So like herself on paper, which I think is adorable.
Yes. And they're so cute. They look like watercolor and it's so whimsical. It very much just makes you think of childhood reading.
It really does.
Books, children illustrations. I love the little bear because he's selling honey, and there's like a little bee at the bottom. It's so cute when he's selling honey. It's adorable.
It is. And you know what? I love that. We talk about how creativity wanes as you get older, but there are still those beacons, those adults who can really exemplify. And I look at all the illustrators of children's books. Like, I mean, very few of them are realistic. They all have that childlike quality to them, obviously, because they want to appeal to children. It's just good marketing at that point. But people are out there, they can do it. And so if somebody else can do it, you can do it. You just have to put beside your preconceived notions, your judgments, you know, the structure of your daily life, and just go for it.
Yeah, you can still very much bring out the inner child in your adult life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and that's one thing I really like about her pieces is that it brings out the child within me, but she's obviously not 5. So the childlikeness is within her.
Yeah, and there are simpler ways to do it. Like here, we see scale.
Yeah.
Just the fact that those flowers are huge compared to the figure gives it like a fairy tale quality.
Yeah.
Like, who is this little mini Thumbelina type person?
Yeah.
Or is it a normal person with giant flowers? Like, what existence is happening here? And just playing with those little nuances can completely change a work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think you see that in a lot of her work. It's very whimsical. Like, this person, like, where is she going? Where is this journey taking her? Very interesting. It's kind of like whimsical, magically.
It totally gives me like Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll vibes, just because of the lushness. There's so many different plants. It's just shown through different patterns and different colors. They're all very simple by themselves, but once you compile them all together, it gives a certain complexity to the piece that kind of gives you that, like, ooh, what's happening?
Yeah. It's a cool way of making a jungle without having to make a jungle. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of realistic artists out there that do amazing work, but with a lot less effort. You can get the exact same idea across. And even more so because you're not just copying something that's there. You're creating a whole other world. Yeah. World building.
And then this is cute because it is a bird. It's a bird.
fly at the hot air balloon. But
Yeah.
it's in a hot air balloon.
Yes. Which again is very like childlike thinking. It's very out of the box. That creativity. I see why NASA needs the creative people. Like you are needed.
Absolutely.
You are very much needed in the world.
Yes. So if hearing all of this is a little bit overwhelming, you're like, yeah, guys, that sounds great, but I don't know how to actually put that in practice. Start with the scribble. It's all it takes. This the free form, no expectations, and it also helps train you to look at the world around you and observe and notice different things that aren't there at face value. So if you start some scribbles, maybe you'll see some figures. It's just like staring at the clouds.
I was just about to say that is very much, and that thinking right there is the childlike creativity, is making something that is a blob and turning it into something that actually is a form that exists. Get rid of the judgment. Again, easier said than done. We both know. But scribbling, you can do it. You can toss it away. You don't ever have to see it again.
Yeah.
There's no commitments to scribbling, but I think that's the best way to try to get out of some of that linear thinking, some of that critical thinking that we all have in the back of our mind, saying that it's not good.
And on that note, don't let the end product deter you from the value of the process itself. Because doing it, learning from it, enjoying it has intrinsic value. And we deal with that here at Purple Easel all the time. When we're instructing, we are trying to help eliminate that critical voice inside your head and help you tap into that childlike wonder by enjoying the process. Whether you like the finished product or not, hopefully you do. We want to get you there, but the first time out the gate, you might not, and that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as it's enough to want to come back and keep trying, because it takes a long time. It takes a lot of practice.
Yes, and see it through, because that creates discipline. Seeing it all the way through, whether you like it or not, will create discipline. Doing it, keep doing it, and you will see over time as you keep doing things, you're like, hey, I can see the improvement. But that discipline of doing it and seeing it through is also very important.
Always try to finish your work, even if you are super discouraged. You'll learn problem solving, you'll learn what not to do, and you'll learn some techniques that actually work pretty well. And at the end of the day, even if you don't love it, you'll still have that like, I did it.
Yes.
Okay, I did it. Cool. Let's move on.
Yes. And from all of us here at Purple Easel, thank you so much for tuning in.
Make sure to check out the links below for today's artists, Keith Haring and Gunnar Alms.
Join us at purpleeaselplus.com to paint with the world's largest paint sub studio online.
And if you're in Southern California, make sure to swing by the studio. In the meantime, create more and create often.
Bye.
Childlike your art.